everybody. Happy Monday, the last day of November, and also a full moon, apparently, that I just found out this afternoon. Lovely to see all of you. I'm Shelby Dwyer. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a counselor at University Health and Counseling Services. This is Yoga for Mental Wellness, a really fun collaboration between myself and UHCS and the Center for Spirituality, Dialogue, and Service. Today, hopefully Luca will be joining us. That's why the chair is there. And if you don't know Luca, you gotta get on that. He's my cat. But anyway, today you will need a pillow or a yoga bolster. And really that's all you should need. If you are potentially in a place that's a little bit more cold, you might want to add some layers. We're not going to be necessarily sweating in this practice. It's going to be a much more grounding and hopefully a restful sequence for all of you. I'm aware that the end of the semester is near, finals are coming up. Some students are still having midterms, which I just can never wrap my head around that. So a lot going on, and I know that it's been just quite the semester. So we're going to do a bit more of a grounding sequence today. As always, listen to your body, do what's best for you. You are the expert of your body. Everything that I share in this class is an offering and nothing that you have to be beholden to. If you find that you want to lay on your mat the whole time and just listen, that's okay. These are also recorded, so you can come back to them at any time and practice at your own pace and whatever feels best for you. Also, feel free to put questions in the chat. It's a live chat. I don't think it's viewable once the recording is up, but at least during the class, we can see them. So if you have questions, suggestions, anything like that, I'm going to do not disturb my computer so that the email sounds don't come on. But go ahead and initially, let's just find a comfortable seat. So you can sit cross-legged. Maybe you have one shin in front of the other. I'm gonna fix that. And close your eyes if it feels safe to do so. Maybe you keep your eyes open with a soft gaze. And just tune into your body for a moment. We won't be here for too long. But I'll invite you to just check in with yourself. Maybe this is the first time today that you've actually slowed down and paused and taken stock of your internal environment. Notice if there are any areas of tension in your body, if there are places that feel a bit more tight or like they're carrying the brunt of the stress that you might be experiencing. On the opposite spectrum, maybe there are parts of your body that feel tired and maybe a bit sore or weak. Maybe overall you feel fine. And check in with yourself to see how your day is going. Be honest with yourself, right? I know sometimes people will say, how are you? And people respond, oh, I'm good, how are you? And really behind the scenes, it's like, everything is a mess. I'm really stressed out. I'm really overwhelmed, but no, I'm good. So be honest with yourself. Really check in and tell yourself how you're feeling today. Throughout this practice, I'll invite you to really honor where you're at. So honor where your body is physically, right? With how you're feeling internally. Also honoring where you're at emotionally. Your mat or your blanket, your floor, whatever you're practicing on, welcomes you as you are. I welcome you as you are. And so give yourself permission to meet yourself where you're at this evening. As you feel ready, we're going to transition to child's pose. And if you have a blanket, or excuse me, a pillow or a bolster, you could actually use it as support. So for child's pose, you'll come onto your shins and you'll bring your big toes together. And you can have your knees wide, maybe about as wide or a little bit wider than your mat. I'm using typically it's a wider mat, so I bring my knees to almost the edge of my mat, and that would be about the width of like a jade mat, if y'all are familiar. And then bringing the bolster or the pillow in between your knees, maybe in between your thighs if you have the flexibility. Start to melt your heart forward over the bolster or pillow. Maybe let your arms just kind of wrap around it and hug the pillow. As you're folding over your bolster or your pillow, rather your prop, make sure that there's enough space in your midsection so that you can breathe really fully, so that you're not crunching, you're not sort of suffocating yourself, but you're supported by your prop. And initially, fidget as much as you need to allow yourself to feel like you're in a relatively comfortable position. Allow your hips to be heavy and sink toward your heels. Allow the muscles in your body to soften, right? The floor is supporting you here. Your prop is supporting you. If you don't have a bolster or pillow, you can also simply bring your hands in toward your heart. So I put my forearms together and I hug them in and rest my head on my hand. So I'm kind of in a cocoon little ball, like how, you know how they take those pictures of babies that are all like, they're propped perfectly? This is what it reminds me of. Like Ann Geddes, remember that? I don't know if y'all know what I'm talking about, but. So you can also do this without a prop, just so you're aware. Take some really deep, full breaths here into your belly. Maybe you can even feel your belly expand toward your thighs as you breathe in. And maybe as you breathe out, you can feel the weight of your low back just melt slowly closer and closer to the earth. Hopefully you did this on your own, but you can have your head turned to one side so that you're resting on your cheek. I'll cue you to turn to the other cheek shortly. See if you can really offer yourself space to rest here. Just for transparency, in case there are new folks, I wear a Fitbit and I check the time on it just to make sure that I'm keeping you in poses for the right amount of time. As some of you may know, Yin Yoga is where we actually come into poses and we hold them for a longer period of time. So some poses we might be in for 3 minutes, some we could be in up to 8 minutes. Tonight we might move a little bit. We'll be in them for more to like the 3 to 5 minute range. And the reason that we do that, where we hold a shape for a longer period of time, is we're actually targeting connective tissues in the body. You can go ahead and turn your head to the opposite side. I'm going to keep facing y'all since I don't want to have my head facing the wall. But we're targeting connective tissues in the body, which is the ligaments, fascia. I'm getting a message that I have an unstable connection, so hopefully I don't lose y'all. But it's the ligaments, the fascia, the joints. And we're not targeting the muscles, right? So you can think about it as like braces or the wire that goes around teeth when people have brackets on them for braces. There's this consistent pressure that's held for a sustained period of time, and that's what moves the teeth, right? It's not this constant quick pressure of like flexing a muscle and lifting weights, right? Like where you do those relatively not relatively quickly, but move with your breath. And so because we're working these connective tissues, right, the bone, the fascia, the joints, ligaments, we can't move them quickly in order to actually change their shape. That sustained pressure also allows for those parts of our bodies to become stronger and more resilient. So Yin Yoga is actually a really awesome complementary practice to gym workouts, bar classes, running, lifting weights, because those connective tissues in the body support the muscles, right? Fascia holds, I think, a third of the body's water in the body. And by working it through Yin Yoga, we keep it supple and juicy. You might have heard me say this before, but this is the only time I'll use juicy in yoga is when we're literally talking about the juiciness of fascia. I don't know, some yoga teachers say that word all the time. Maybe you've heard it. Take some deep breaths here. Maybe sigh out the mouth. Big breath in. And exhale. Couple more at your own pace. Then slowly use your arms, straighten the arms, lift your torso up, slide your bolster, your pillow off to the side, and then swing your legs forward so that you're sitting on your bum. There's no pretty way to say this, but move your cushion, meaning your glutes, your bum, out to the side a little bit so that you can sit on your sits bones. So you'll feel that there's these little like points, like these bones that kind of more naturally rest more evenly, allow your hips to rest more evenly on the mat. And now for a moment, just kind of figure out what you need. So for me, I know the back of my legs are really tight, so I'm just gonna stretch forward a little bit. Maybe you've been sitting hunched over a computer all day and you wanna bring your arms behind you, press your hands into the floor and open up through your heart, pulling the shoulder blades together and down your back. Maybe you want to do a little bit of both and just kind of find what works for you. Again, meeting your body where it's at today. Maybe you give your legs a little bit of a massage. Just kind of rubbing. Maybe rubbing out your ankles. Massaging your toes, your feet, whatever works for you. If you notice your feet are cold, go grab socks, right? Totally cool. We'll move into caterpillar. And so you'll bring your pillow or your bolster, I'm gonna say your prop, on top of your legs. Your legs are about just extended in front of you. Maybe your ankles are about hip width distance apart. And then bringing your bolster on top of your legs, you might sort of walk it up so that it's pressing right up against your belly. Or you could extend it more towards your feet and then kind of round forward to see kind of where you need to place the bolster. In particular, be mindful of your chest. You don't want to necessarily compress your chest. You also don't want to compress your belly. So see if before you lean forward, you can kind of press into the floor with your arms, give yourself a really long straight spine, and then kind of start to melt elongated over your legs. And then the bolster or the pillow is here to offer you a little bit more support. If you find that you have decent flexibility and can fold forward a bit more, maybe touching your thighs, sure, whatever works for you. However, be mindful that you're finding a sort of a middle point in the sensation you feel across the back of your legs and even across your spine. So in Yin Yoga, we want to find a 4 or 5 out of 10, so not too intense, not too gentle. So this isn't the time to come into the fullest expression, right? Again, we're targeting those connective tissues, so we want to find that sweet spot middle point. So for me, like I said, my hamstrings are like crazy tight. So I'm going to bend my knees a little bit. And then I can play with bringing the bolster back to kind of rest my head on. Maybe I straighten my legs and keep my chest up a little bit higher so that it's not too much of a pull across the back of my legs. Alternatively, another variation is staying completely upright, right? You're still getting some sensation across the back of the legs by staying upright, because there is still some pressure where your hips are rooting down, your spine is long, and yet at the same time, your legs are heavy against the floor. So again, find what works for you, find what feels best in your body, and then settle in, staying in relative stillness. Check in with your breathing. Notice, are you still breathing as fully as you did when you were seated upright at the start of this class? See if you can relax your feet, relax your legs, right? Let the muscles be soft. When the muscles are soft, that's when we can really make an impact on those connective tissues. The muscle's engaged, we're working the muscle instead. If you're rounded forward, maybe you feel an expansiveness across the tops of your shoulder blades, across your upper back. Maybe you can even feel a stretching through your spine. If you're attempting to hold your chest up a little more, you might even notice some core activation, right? So your ab muscles might be awakened a little bit. Maybe there's some pressure across the glutes from where your hips are heavy against your mat. Take a few deep breaths at your own pace. One more big breath in. Exhale, if you're folded forward, use the arms to walk your torso upright. And then slowly turn your hips so that you are seated parallel to the long edges of your mat. We'll start with lateral lie on our left side. So bringing your right heel in toward your hip and toward your pelvis. Your right knee will be sort of pressing down towards the mat. You'll extend your left leg at a diagonal from your hip, so out a bit into like a wide V. You can take your bolster or your pillow and rest it on top of your left thigh. And then you can start to, again, let me pause before I start folding over, create that really long, spacious spine, crown of the head towards the ceiling. And then arch up and over your left leg. Maybe propping your elbow onto the bolster, resting your head in your hands. Here in particular, we're targeting the inside of the left thigh, maybe even a little bit of the groin, and maybe even some along the back of your left leg. So again, finding that 4 or 5 out of 10. If you're not feeling much sensation in this sort of lateral lean, you could also potentially turn your torso towards your left leg and begin to melt your heart towards your left foot, maybe reaching towards the left foot with your hands. You could also do that with your bolster. So again, find what works for you. I'm going to take a lateral lean because for me, I don't often do any kind of lateral movement. Apologies if you can hear music. I live near some musicians and I think they're having a little bit of like a jam session. Hopefully it won't be distracting. Again, make sure you've got room in your belly to breathe, whether you're folding forward over your left knee or if you're in the lateral dragonfly like me. Maybe in particular, breathing into the right side of your waist, breathing into all those little spaces in between your right ribs, into all those unused little pockets in your right lungs. You might play with sort of letting your head hang if you're in the side, lateral dragonfly, just to get a stretch across the right side of your neck. Being sure to also support your head. Allow your jaw to be soft. Again, the muscles in your legs are relaxed. You'll notice that there might be some periods of silence. Maybe you've noticed them already. I know that it's okay if your mind wanders and suddenly you find yourself mentally in a completely different space than where you are now. It's just your brain doing its job. And so see if those moments that you catch yourself distracted, if you can bring yourself back to the sensation you're feeling in this moment. You've been in the shape for a few minutes, so if you notice that things, the stretching across the back of your legs or the opening across the right side of your body, whatever it is, if it's dissipated at all, you can always gently adjust and move deeper or ease out of the shape or stay as you are. Again, as long as you're kind of following the guidelines of the 4 or 5 out of 10, and also honoring your body where it's at and listening to what your body might need. Yin Yoga and yoga in general is, to me personally, meditation in some form. Yoga can be a moving meditation. Sometimes if I'm not comfortable just kind of sitting to meditate, I might take a yin pose. Helps me maybe get more in tune with my body and how I'm feeling. Take a big, deep breath in. Gently sigh it out. Inhale, lift your torso upright. Move your pillow off to the side for just a moment. And then bring the soles of your feet together, knees out to the side. And just gently let your knees fall out. You can have your heels whatever distance away from your hips and pelvis that you'd like. Maybe you kind of round yourself forward. Maybe you come sit up with a long spine. Maybe you flop your knees side to side to just kind of release any pressure in the hip joints. I know when I first started, if there are new yogis out there, when I first started going to yoga classes and teachers would say, do whatever you want, I would have no idea what to do. And so I'd look around and see what other people are doing. And right now, when we're doing yoga virtually, we might be alone. So no one's going to look at you and be like, what are you doing? And they wouldn't be anyway in a yoga class, right? Because we're all in our own head all the time. But this can be a really good opportunity to just listen and go inward and see, what is it that my body needs today? What is it that, maybe would feel good? If something doesn't feel good, right? Do something different. Experiment. This is your practice and this is your time for you. So come here, Moo. I don't know if you can hear that meowing, but that's Moo. He doesn't like when doors are closed, so he wanders and cries. On that note, we're going to move into lateral dragonfly on our right side. So bring your left heel in toward your pelvis and extend your right leg long out to the side in sort of a wide V. And again, just kind of find what works for you here. You might notice that one side is tighter than the other. One side might be more flexible than the other. My left side is way more tight than my right side. So my lateral dragonfly is going to look really different. Or sorry, this is my left leg, but I'm mirroring for you all. So this is my right leg. So again, set yourself up well. Maybe start off bringing your bolster, your pillow atop your right thigh. And then setting up your elbow, resting your tricep on your pillow, or I'm just going to say prop, on your prop. And then letting your head rest in your hands. Opening up through the left side of your waist, allowing for space on the right side, inner right waist, so that you can still breathe fully. If you're not feeling a lot of sensation, you can also lift your torso back upright, bring yourself to align your heart rather over your right leg. And then with a long spine, fold forward over your right leg. And notice how that shifts the sensation you might feel across the back of your right leg. You can also do this without a pillow or a bolster or prop. Again, aligning yourself, maybe reaching for your right foot. Again, not going into the fullest expression of the pose. So finding what feels best for you in this moment. In particular, we're targeting the inner right leg line, specifically along the thigh, maybe even some of the groin, the back of the right leg, your right leg. If you're arching up and over in this lateral dragonfly, you might even feel sort of a more open and expansiveness across the left side of your waist and your ribs. You can play with letting your head drop to get a stretch across the left side of your neck, being sure to sort of do that for a few rounds of breath and then bringing the support back to your head just so you don't overstrain the muscles in your neck. If you're rounding forward over your right leg, you might feel a spreading of your shoulder blades as they melt towards the earth. Maybe an elongation of your spine, sort of like a growing up and over of your spine. Wherever you are, breathe really deeply and see if you can direct your breath to the sensation that you're experiencing. Remember that the body and the brain is really nourished by our breath. Right? Like when we yawn, our brain, and y'all, if there are any BNS people out there, let me know if this is not factual. But I feel like at some point I read in a textbook that when we yawn, it's a sign that our brain isn't getting enough oxygen. It's also, yes, because we're tired. But our breath really, really nourishes us. It helps regulate our nervous system. And while, yes, we only breathe into our lungs, according to traditional Chinese medicine, which is where Yin Yoga came from, the breath really helps nourish the energy, the chi that flows through our body, through these meridians, these channels of energy through our body. If it doesn't feel safe to focus on your breath, you can also focus on the sensations within your body, right, from these shapes. You can focus on the textures of your clothing or the mat or floor or props that you're with. Maybe you expand your awareness to the sounds around you, right? It's raining here in Boston, and I can definitely hear the rain kind of pitter-pattering on the roof and the window. Using one of our 5 senses and kind of focusing in on that can really help ground us in the present moment. So when you notice your mind is distracted, can you use one of the 5 senses to bring yourself back? You've been here for a few moments, so notice if anything needs to be adjusted, if perhaps you need to gently ease out of the shape, maybe change the direction of how you're folding. Maybe you stay exactly as you are. Really find what works for you in this moment. Again, knowing each side is different. I'm going to change the direction of my bolster. We'll be here for about a minute more. Big, full, deep breaths here. One more big, full breath. Exhale. Inhale. Lift your torso. Slowly push your bolster, your pillow up to the side. Maybe again, bring your knees out to the side, soles of your feet together. Maybe, sorry if you can hear moo. Maybe butterfly the legs or the knees, kind of swishing them up and down. You can also bring your hands behind you, press into the earth. Plant your feet on the mat in front of you with bent knees, and then just kind of swish or windshield wiper your legs back and forth. Again, you know what's best for you. You know what your body, like what movement your body is craving and what might offset that. Hi, Moo. What might offset the tension that you might be feeling. Now the door is cracked like maybe 1.5 inches, and I just look and there's a kitty face creeping in the door. He won't come in because he's very, very shy. But one day I do hope y'all will be able to meet him. All right. Give yourself a few deep breaths here, just kind of moving in whatever way you need to. I'm kind of swaying from side to side because it feels good to get a little bit of that lateral movement in again. Just kind of bringing my body back to equilibrium. All right, and now something a little unconventional. We're going to come up into a downward facing dog. But first, come up to all fours. Bring your knees hips width distance, and look through your knees to make sure that you can't see your ankles or your feet, so that way you ensure that your ankles are coming directly out from your knees. Let the tops of your feet rest on the mat. Bring your wrists underneath your shoulders and have a slight bend in your elbows and hug them in so that the inside, so like the crease of your elbow, I almost said eyeball. The crease of your elbow faces forward. Middle fingers facing straight forward as well. Press into your palms, fingers spread wide. Drop your belly. Let your heart push through your shoulders. Big breath in. Exhale, round your spine, push the floor away. Inhale, belly drops, heart lifts, gaze lifts for cow. And on your exhale, rounding your spine, tucking your chin toward your chest, pressing your shoulder blades up towards the ceiling. Inhaling for cow. Move with your own breath. I almost wanted to say move with your own breath. Knowing that my pace, the length of my breaths, my inhales and exhales might be different than yours. Maybe close your eyes and again, tune inward to what your body needs. Take one more inhale and exhale, moving through your cow and cat at your own pace. And then come back to a neutral spine, tuck your toes, walk your hands forward a little bit, maybe about 6 inches, and then press your hips up and back, coming into your downward facing dog. We are not going to be here that long. But your feet are behind you, again, hips width distance apart. Bend your knees, maybe bending one and then the other. And while you're pushing the floor away with your hands, you're really rooting down through your feet. And there's this opposite energy that's happening where along the torso, my arms, my torso, and my hips are really reaching skyward. I'm pressing my tailbone up towards the ceiling. And at the same time, rooting my legs down. Inhale, lift your left leg. I hope I'm not going to hit anything behind me. Reach your left leg on. Maybe gently open up through the hip if that would feel good. Maybe do some hip circles. Again, whatever your body needs. And then as you feel ready, swing your left leg through, bringing your left knee behind your left wrist, your right ankle somewhere along your mat. Not necessarily parallel to the top edge of your mat, but at an angle. And then slowly begin to shimmy your right leg back. So I'm kind of like lifting my knee, bringing the leg back until I feel like my hips are really heavy, pressing towards the floor. The more that I bring my left shin to parallel, the more intense this is across my inner leg line and my groin. So You're also noticing I pushed my hands so that I'm more of in an upright position. But we're going to move into sleeping swan. So as your hips are moving really heavy towards the floor, start to melt your heart down to the floor. Maybe you rest on your forearms, however that feels okay in your body. Maybe you come onto straight arms, pressing into the floor. This position will actually create more of a back bend. Wherever you are, maybe you bring your right hand to your back and just make sure that your hips are even and level. You don't want to be slouching over to one side. And if you are, you can always bring a support like your pillow or a bolster underneath the hip that's sagging a bit more. But your pelvis is even, your hips are also even. So for me, I'm actually noticing that my right leg is back a little too far. So I'm going to gently pull it forward a little bit so that my hip points are even, and then melt forward towards the earth. So breathe really deeply here. This gets really deep, potentially into your left outer hip, maybe even across the entirety of your left hip, maybe even across the outside of your left thigh. You may also certainly potentially be feeling the top of your right thigh, your quad. And again, finding that 4 or 5 out of 10 and how much you melt your heart towards the earth. So for me, I have really open hips, and also I tend to be pretty flexible in sleeping swan pose. But today I'm noticing that my body maybe needs to be a bit more upright. So I'm finding that 4 or 5 out of 10 rather than going into the fullest expression. And I'm ensuring as well that I can breathe really deeply into my midsection. Allow your legs to be relaxed. Maybe your arms are doing some effort with holding you upright, holding your torso upright. But see if you can really just let the bones hold you up here. Maybe allow the shoulders to do some work, right? Hug the shoulder blades down and away from your ears. Maybe allow them to sort of press against your back so that you can really press your elbows into the mat. If you've got some textbooks nearby, you can always bring them underneath your forehead to rest your head on if you need some support. Your pillow can also come directly underneath your forehead if you want some support for the back of your neck. Find what works for you here. Breathe really fully and deeply. If at any point it's too intense, you can gently ease out of it. Again, bringing your right heel closer to your right hip will potentially lessen the tension in your left hip. Soften your jaw, soften your forehead. For some people in particular, this can bring up maybe tension or emotion. For some people, the hips can hold a lot of emotion and tension, and we might not even realize it. Remember, you're meeting yourself where you're at today. So if this pose isn't serving you, if you need something different, do what is best for you. Be here for less than a minute. So you're doing amazing. Some of you might be like, I could totally sleep in this. And some of you might be like, this is excruciating. I need to get out of it. But again, honor where you're at. Take a big, deep breath in. Exhale. Inhale, straighten through your arms. Sit over to your left side for a moment. Oh boy, bring your right leg to meet your left. Extend your legs long for a moment. And then just kind of bounce your legs up and down. Maybe wiggle the legs side to side. Just releasing your hips. And then as you feel ready, however you get there, making your way back up into a downward facing dog. Maybe you stop for a moment on all fours and do some cat-cows if that would feel useful. I'm going to pop up into my downward facing dog and just pedal out my legs for a moment, allowing to get a stretch across the back of my calf muscles. Once you feel ready, come back up into your downward facing dog if you weren't there already. Make sure your feet are hips width distance apart. And then whenever you're ready, lift your right leg up towards the ceiling. Maybe open up through your leg, maybe bending your knee, doing some little hip circles. And then whenever you feel ready, bringing your right knee just behind your right wrist, your left heel somewhere behind your left leg. Again, your right shin does not need to be parallel to the front of the mat. And then start to shimmy your left leg back so that you can feel that your hips are level, or rather even, so that one is not too far forward than the other. And then bringing, one of my cats sneezed. And then bringing yourself upright for a moment, just to have a long spine so you can really feel that you're kind of evenly distributing your weight into both hips and not leaning over toward one side. And then as you feel ready, moving into sleeping swan, coming down onto your forearms, maybe resting onto the floor fully. Maybe resting your forehead on top of your pillow or bolster. I didn't say this on the first side, but you can also bring the bolster or pillow underneath your armpits and your arms. Oh, this is nice. I wish I had thought of this on the first side. Highly recommend. Wherever you are, bring your right hand again, or your left hand rather, whichever one works for you, to the back of your hips. Make sure that your pelvis is level. If you find that you're sinking over more toward one side, bringing your pillow or another, even a textbook, underneath the hip that maybe is a little bit lower for some support. And again, finding that 4 or 5 out of 10, not too intense, not too gentle, but this time we're experiencing more sensation in the right hip. So maybe in particular, the outside of your right hip, maybe the entire inner right hip, outer right thigh. Maybe you feel some pressure in your low spine and across your glutes. Maybe you feel a stretch across the top of your left thigh. Again, relax your muscles. Let your legs be really heavy. If you're propped up on your forearms, maybe you can allow the bones to really support you here. Wherever you are, breathe really deeply into your belly. Let that massage your low spine, and maybe even massage out the tension that you could be experiencing from this shape. If at any point anything feels like it's numb or tingly, gently ease out of it. I know for me, my right inner hip was starting to get a little tingly and numb. I could tell my right foot was falling asleep. So I'm going to prop myself up a little bit more. We'll be here for about just a couple more minutes. Less than that. Full big breaths. Again, gently ease yourself out of the shape if it would feel better. If it feels too intense, maybe you fold a little bit deeper for this last minute. Maybe you stay exactly as you are, whatever works for you in this moment. Big, full breath in. Let it go. Inhale, slowly use your arms to prop your torso upright. Swing yourself over onto your right hip. Oh, and then again, maybe straighten through your legs, wiggle the legs back and forth, up and down. Again, finding whatever works for you, whatever release you need. Maybe bringing your feet to the width of your mat, planting them on the mat, windshield wiping your legs side to side. I'm going to take a happy baby for a moment. You could do this as well. Roll onto your back. Bring your knees in toward your armpits. Bring your feet up towards the ceiling as if you're doing a squat on the ceiling. And then grab the inside or outside of your feet. And as you're pulling your feet toward your armpits or your shoulders, you can also push up with your legs. So there's this opposite action that creates a little bit more of a sensation or pressure in the inner hips. But for me, it feels like a really good release on my inner leg line. You're in a happy baby. You can rock from side to side like you are a legit happy baby. And then for those of you on your back, bring yourself upright for a moment. And bring your pillow or your bolster towards the top of your mat. And then not necessarily up on the edge, but then bring the bolster to the top edge of your mat. And then bring your seat so that the low part of your back is against the flat part of your pillow or bolster. And then maybe you bring the soles of your feet together in a diamond shape. And then slowly start to lean back over your bolster or your pillow, bringing your arms out to the side like wings. You could also bend your knees, plant your feet directly onto the mat, knock the knees together, maybe taking a little bit of a wider stance with your feet. Having your legs in this position puts less pressure on your low back. Whereas if you have your feet in that butterfly or diamond shape, it adds a lot more pressure to the low spine because it deepens the arch. It also opens up through the inner leg line and the hips. Another variation would be to extend your legs long, relaxing the feet, maybe letting the feet drop out side to side. This variation for me opens up a lot more through the front of my body. Since our head is supported, it's okay if your chin is above your forehead. Maybe you're opening up through your throat a little bit more. And I'll offer that you can take this for Shavasana. Or if you'd like, you can stay in this shape for a few rounds of breath, maybe 5 breaths or so, and then gently transition to lying flat supine on your back. So again, honoring what your body needs, honoring what you think could be good, not listening to your ego, right? Not necessarily doing something because you see me doing it on the screen. And wherever you settle in for our Shavasana, allow your body to settle. All of your muscles relax. Nothing is clenching or tight. Your body is fully supported by the mat and the earth beneath you. Your breath is full and nourishes your whole body, your brain. Allow yourself this moment to recharge, to recalibrate, to return to self. Slowly start to deepen your breath, inviting movement into your body gently first with your breathing, and then maybe opening and closing your palms, gently turning your head side to side, maybe curling and uncurling the toes, rolling out your ankles. If you're on your back, fully supine laying against the floor, curl up over onto one side. For those of you on a bolster or a pillow, gently use your arms to bring your torso upright and turn to face me cross-legged. Laying down on your side, gently bring yourself into an upright seated position. Close your eyes if it feels safe to do so, or maybe keep a soft gaze towards the ground. Before we close our practice today, I wanted to offer something. So throughout today's practice, we embodied Brahmacharya, which is one of the 5 yamas or ethical principles in yoga. And this was set forth in the Yoga Sutras by Patanjali, like 5,000 years ago. And Brahmacharya means, it's been translated many ways, but in one way that we use it in Yin Yoga, and we embody it in Yin Yoga, is through non-excess. right? So taking what we needed, leaving the rest. So this week, maybe you can live in non-excess. Eat, work, and sleep to the point of increased energy and before the lethargy of excess sets in. Ponder the words of Jensei, a Japanese Buddhist monk who said, "The point of life is to know what's enough." And so for this week, notice what's enough and stop there. Practice pleasure without excess. That was an excerpt from the Yamas and Niyamas by Deborah Adele, and I'll be sure to put that in the notes. Go ahead and bring your left hand to your heart, fingers spread wide. Right hand rests on your left, fingers spread wide. Apply a gentle pressure, signifying the weight of your hands as a sign of comfort toward your body. Take a deep breath in and sigh it out. Again, big breath in to the extent that you need. And exhaling, non-excess. Once more, big breath in. Exhale. Slowly lower your hands to your knees. Blink open your eyes and come back to the space. Thank you so much for practicing with me today, for laughing with me today, for honoring your body, for taking care of yourself, for making this time for you. Really proud of you. You're doing amazing. And hope to see you next week. We've got 2 more classes left, the 7th and the 14th. We also have a special reading day pop-up on December 8th from 11 to 11:55 live on YouTube called The Final Stretch. Thank you. I thought it was a really good name too, but this is something we've done for several years and we're so excited to do it. If you've got suggestions, email me s.dwyer@northeastern.edu. I love hearing from y'all. Take good care, sleep well, but not too much. Bye.